The rich history of collectible card games such as the X-Files CCG and the Age of Empires ECG are chock full of compelling stories, and we'll be continuing our conversation with one industry insider who will talk about the highs and lows of working in the card gaming business. And of course, I'll be announcing another giveaway wherein one lucky subscriber will win an X-Files CCG 1997 promo card. Welcome everyone to the Alien Investigations channel. I'm Steven and you're watching the Magic Bullet. If you tuned into the previous issue of the Magic Bullet a couple of weeks back, then you were regaled with a fascinating inside look into how trading card games like the Scooby-Doo Expandable card game came into existence, courtesy of the gravelly, dulcet tones of Mr. David May, a pillar in the card gaming community who most notably served as alpha playtester for the X-Files Collectible card game back in 1996. Moreover, David May was instrumental in the conception of other games produced in the wake of the X-Files CCG's untimely demise, such as WCW Full Impact, a card game that he designed alongside David Abel. From there, David May went on to oversee Journeyman Press, a division within the United States Playing Card Company, where he playtested and helped design such spirited games as the Scooby-Doo ECG, the Age of Empires ECG, eBay the Card Game, and a personal favorite of mine, the first edition of Zombies, before it became a veritable powerhouse production of Twilight Creations by Todd and Carrie Breitenstein. As correspondents of the Magic Bullet and the Alien Investigations channel at large, John Wood and 𝐗-𝐅i𝐥e𝐬 continued their interview with Mr. David May. We'll hear a little more about the events that transpired which prevented the Scooby-Doo ECG from reaching retail stores 25 years ago. And he'll talk about the people at Journeyman Press and the artists involved in bringing to life the expandable card game for Age of Empires. Let's listen in.
So, Dave, were the two Scooby sets, were they created at the same time, the original and the Alien expansion?
Yes. Yeah. So we developed the core set off of the show. And then remember I said the direct-to-video release
Yes.
was part of the agreement. And so, give Brian and Todd credit. They cranked out quite a bit. When you look at that 1 year there for Journeyman, you have 2 core sets and honestly 2.5 expansions. Marcus and Ted had really finished Smoking Saints, which was the final expansion or the final part of the Age of Empires 2. And again, when you look at that, all the custom art that went into that, and the design that went into that, which is another story for another time probably, in addition to finishing products like eBay, which was intended for Toys R Us. We talked about Peasantry, which was the museum company, right? So all these businesses, again, had a place. There was a very large stationery business. Usually get little bridge cards with little puppy dogs on it. But having that Peasantry, that was really created for that market. And that doesn't include the games that were in production that were never released because we were still working to develop other licenses. Of course, with Age of Empires, we had a relationship with this little company called Microsoft. And, so there's a whole story there. And then ultimately, like I said, developing these products and having these other licensors. And we had to pitch, products like Looney Tunes. And so you're doing all this prototyping, Hot Wheels. There was all sorts of other things that were happening in the background. We had developed a relationship. We were working on that with DC, not just because of the comic book, but separate from that. And we were in the discussions with Matt over Spy vs. Spy. So there was a lot of cool things besides our own homegrown products. And like I said, if you look at the artists who developed Age of Empires art, some of those cats are pretty famous, right? Guys like Moyer. So there was some really cool people that were working back then. Once the product failed to ship to Walmart because Walmart put the order on hold. And I want you to think about this. Walmart putting an order for product, which is basically a case per location. And not just do you have decks, but if you have purchased product, you will know that somewhere on backer boards, they're on clamshells, or you might have on J hooks. Look at the little plastic, right? Because these are going into what we call a planogram. These J hooks were going on pegboards. But because of the mess, which then became Warner Brothers, and because of some internal things that took place, that order did not ship. And that was a sizable commitment when you have 2,000 stores at a couple cases each. That's a lot of money tied up, not including the infamous DC comic book. And even all the people who were involved with that, it seemed like everybody was gone except for me when it was all said and done. Where did everybody go? And yeah, so yep, that's kind of how that happened. And then the company went through its transition, and the product never shipped, except for what initially went in distribution to Warner Brothers. And then I think a little bit might have got out into liquidators, which we would call those things like big lots. But most of it didn't get off the dock and literally was destroyed. So I did not count how many. Someone could look it up. I don't know how many stores initially closed. I remember in Cincinnati, we were on the east side, and I remember going to the mall when they put the product out, and they had the big video monitors, and they had the promo for the game, and they showed that. And like I said, within about a week and a half, less than 2 weeks, Warner Brothers shut all the stores down. And we did not see it coming. We didn't know it was coming. But we had already delayed shipment because of exclusivity. They had this selling window, which we had agreed to, which was not uncommon. Like I said, today you see that exclusivity marked on the boxes because that's how you keep Target happy. You give them something that supposedly nobody else has, trying to protect the market. There was no way we were going to take a product that had already been promised to mass. No one in the gaming industry was going to buy it at that point. We had already proverbially slit our throats. And we had told them we keep everything separate. Age of Empires is never going to be sold in Walmart. That's never going to happen. I mean, Age of Empires was a gamer's game, hardcore stuff. I cut my teeth on Avalon Hill as a child, right? And it was strategic. It was the computer game as far as simulations are concerned. And it took up space and it took up time. So it was perfect for the hobby. And it was definitely more popular with a more sophisticated. 10-year-olds weren't going to buy that, even though some of our biggest fans did play it when they were 10 because, again, the computer game, but because of their families, their siblings. Or my favorite story is their parents. And they played with them and they carried that nostalgia through. And so, like I said, each of these games is like a child. And I know this is weird because a lot of times we talk about X-Files, we talk about Scooby-Doo. But when I begin to talk about all the other games, right, and how they are actually all interconnected. When the opportunity came to do Age of Empires, which is its own origin story, because we were doing licensing. We were the licensor. The bicycle, little cherub on a bike, right? Playing cards. They have a nostalgic quality. And if you're in the computer software and operating systems, solitaire. And so we entered into a relationship with Microsoft where we allowed them to use the bicycle brand for games.com. and ultimately to develop the bicycle collection of card games. And so I was part of that creative team because I was young and related and nerdy and techie. But in that process, we weren't going to make really any money on Microsoft. But the relationships came about. Is there anything we can do for you? And I said, I got a crazy idea. We could take some properties maybe and develop, a game. And of all things, Ensemble Studios, right? Which they're gamers. If you study the history of gaming, you'll see going back from Ensemble and Bruce Shelley and Age of Empires. I want you to Google this stuff. I don't want to give you all the answers tonight, but you'll find your way all the way back to things like Call of Cthulhu. You'll find your way back to the core product. And so I knew that if we targeted them and technically FASA Interactive, Battletech, Shadowrun, we were trying to develop stuff for Crimson Skies, right? And so Age of Empires was born. And I know that they would have preferred I wrote that for 10-year-olds. But I said, no, I'm going to write a game I want to play. And again, we laid that foundation down, and then Marcus and Ted took it over and ran with it. I kind of had technically I had my hand in everything, and I don't want to sound narcissistic. Those guys busted their backside, and the story's never been told other than what we suck. So far from it. The foil cards for Age of Empires won awards. Matter of fact, we were one of the earliest printers on foil, and they're amazing if you ever get to see them. They're art. They deserve to be on a wall. And they were designed, the art was designed, and the artists who worked on it were some of the better artists. Nothing to, you know what I mean? Because Magic had already developed, and Dave Aikens, who worked on Age, is the guy who's responsible for Zombies. We don't talk about it too much. Journeyman Press itself was predominantly staffed by people that I met on the road slinging X-Files. So if you remember in the X-Files, Dave Frank was brought on board. Originally, he was with Games Workshop. And he was the founder of what we call the Outrider program. Dave Frank is the godfather of store demos, and for all intents and purposes in my world, convention support. And I was doing convention support, pursuing opportunities with Next Games. And if you're going to pursue opportunities with Next Games, then you're going to show up at conventions and you're going to do whatever needs to be done. And again, I'm a gamer, and I played Magic, and I was pretty good at it back in the day. I was actually invited originally to what we call the Pro Tour. I placed top 16 in the United States. So I was okay at it. And I almost went to work for WotC, but got this gig, which is where I wanted to be because of the sports. But ultimately, Brian, true believer, loved X-Files, loved the show. And so we ended up going on this adventure where, we would have this opportunity to make games and play games. And so while we were traveling, we met people, and they became what we would call the special agents. Originally, X-Files got really, really close to buying a UPS delivery truck. There was actually a plan to basically get a SWAT van, paint it X-Files, fill it with Twinkies, take 3 of these crazy special agents and have them drive across America. And that was it. We were just going to load them up, get them some Cheetos, some gas money, and just see what happens. Fill the whole thing with products and Twinkies. We considered the same thing for Scooby-Doo. So we literally could just have events anywhere, right? And mystery machines and all that stuff. And again, it all hinged on Walmart. And again, Todd was married to Carrie, aka Killer Carrie. Not only did she win the first X-Files championship, you know, she won Doomtown, you know, or Deadlands, the CCG, you know, she awesome. And then Todd came along and of course picked up Marcus and all these other characters along the way. And so they had a passion, they had a drive, they had an interest, and we just brought with us the lessons that we learned with X-Files and carried that over. And you know, like I said, highly motivated. If you've ever dreamt about being in the industry and being a game designer, and I mean, yeah, it was Camelot. It was Brigadoon, actually. It just showed up for a couple days and then disappears for 100 years.
And that's all the time we have for today, but there's still more of that fascinating discussion to come. Once again, I want to thank Mr. David May for regaling us with that inside look into the collectible card game industry. It's always a pleasure to have him gracing this lowly YouTube channel with his sagely presence. And as always, I want to know your thoughts on everything we've learned, so hit up that comment section. Which talking point did you find most interesting? Which Journeyman Press game do you want to know more about? Mr. May will return, so leave your questions here and he'll be more than happy to address them in a future video. And before I let you guys go, let's get into the giveaway. This week I'm giving away another X-Files CCG promo card, more specifically, the Not on the Menu event card released in 1997 and featuring none other than Assistant Director Walter Skinner. So if you want a chance to win this lovely card, make sure to investigate that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and leave a comment below. That's all there is to it. The winner of this 97 promo card will be determined by random drawing, but you gotta be a subscriber. The winner will be announced in a future video, so if you want to stay on top of it and everything else that's going on with the channel, be sure to ding that notification bell. And speaking of winners, I want to congratulate Stephen Lamar in Colorado. He's the winner of the Deny Everything promo card as part of the giveaway that I announced in the October 3rd installment of Tips of the Trade. Congrats, Stephen, and thank you for tuning in. And that's our show for today. As always, if you need ideas for constructing an effective X-Files CCG Bureau deck, I've got sample deck videos here on the channel that should prove inspiring. And finally, you can reach out to me at alieninvestigations19@gmail.com for business inquiries, or if you have ideas for upcoming content that you'd like to see. Thank you for tuning in. Once again, I'm Steven, and you've been watching The Magic Bullet.